All right, event trader, here we are into the afternoon session. Keeping an eye on Viacom. We talked about that 46th level just a moment ago. We are seeing it climbing above and edging towards 50. So buyers are starting to come into Viacom. This could really get rolling. As I said, before, if you were involved, 50 would be certainly one area that I'd be looking to bank some profits. I think we're going to fly into that. And then if we get through there, there's a really good shot that we could squeeze up to the 58 level. So we'll continue to monitor this price action. But for now, we're going to break into the week ahead and going to go through a couple of the items on the macro front, starting off first, and then Scott and I are going to take a look at some of the earners that are going to be out next week. Overall, a relatively quiet week as it is going to be just a 4 day session. Markets will be closed on Friday for Good Friday, so please keep that in mind. And in general, it's a pretty quiet week overall. So let's take a look at what we have on the calendar. First, we'll start with the macro. As I said, as a heads up, this is daylight savings over in Europe. So uh, the European market hours will be getting back on track with us as we'll be all caught up with each other there. That's also going to change some of the timing of the economic releases. Moving on to Sunday night, we're going to get the Bank of Japan summary of opinions out late that evening, and that's about it for the weekend in terms of what's on the calendar. Moving on to Monday, relatively quiet start to the week. We got the UK out with the money supply mortgage approval numbers. The Fed, no data in the U.S. There is the Fed member Waller speaking. I think that they might be the only the only voting member that did not speak last week. So we'll see what Governor Waller has to say. Overall, wouldn't expect a big impact on the markets as the Fed message has been pretty well laid out at this point. Japan that evening has their unemployment rate and retail sales, and that wraps up a relatively quiet week Monday. Moving on to Tuesday, we've got German import prices and the preliminary CPI numbers out early in the morning. Spain's also got their preliminary CPI figures, and Italy's got a 10-year bond auction Tuesday. Then in the U.S., we got Randall Quarles speaking. He is, of course, in control of banking capital. So there's been a couple of announcements by the Fed with the SLR and capital returns. So we'll keep an eye out on his comments to see if he's got anything to add on to that. Housing prices will also be in vogue with the FHA and S&P Case-Shiller numbers both due out at 9 a.m. that morning. Keeping an eye out, see if that pricing continues to remain hot. And then we get the consumer confidence number at 10 a.m. Looking for a bounce back from a weak February read. Expectations are for it to be about 96 compared to 91.3 in February. New York Fed President John Williams speaks on Tuesday at 2:30, and we got moving into the Asian markets. We got Japan with their industrial production out Tuesday night at about 7:50 p.m. Australia's got their building approvals and private sector numbers that evening, and then we get the China manufacturing and services PMIs Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Moving into Wednesday, Japan housing starts kicks off the morning at 1 a.m. Then the UK will get their final Q4 GDP read, some current account numbers, as well as their housing prices. Europe, we get French consumer spending and CPI numbers. There will be a German unemployment rate out that morning. And then at 5 a.m., we'll get the Eurozone flash CPI numbers, so their preliminary looks at the headline and X item CPI, the core number there. Canada, GDP and inflation figures are due out Wednesday morning at 8:30. In the U.S., relatively quiet. We got the Chicago PMI at 9:45, as well as pending home sales at 10 a.m. Crude inventories, of course, out at 10:30. And then we move back into the European markets, and sentiment data will be of interest. A lot of this, of course, is the final versions of the PMIs. So we already know the original PMIs, but we get the Australia number at 5:30, and Japan is going to be out with their final number at 8:30. Now, before Japan posts that PMI, they're going to have their quarterly Tonkin survey out for manufacturing and services. Again, this is a quarterly survey. It tends to carry a lot of weight, and that will be released at 7:50 p.m. just prior to the PMI numbers. We will also get from Australia on Wednesday night their retail sales and trade balance. And then again, it's PMI data in Japan. China's Caixin manufacturing PMI number will be out that night too. And then we roll into Thursday morning, which will be a pretty busy session with all the manufacturing PMI numbers being released from Europe and Latin America, of course. We also get the German retail sales number out at 2 a.m., so that will keep the market participants busy. In the U.S., we get our challenger job numbers as well as initial claims. Canada, we also get the building permits. This is all due out at 8:30. And then we move back into PMI numbers for here in the U.S. at 9:45, the final manufacturing PMI number. And we get the ISM manufacturing figures as well as construction spending in the U.S. all at 10 a.m. Total vehicle sales will be released throughout the course of the morning. So it's another item we'll want to watch. And then we get, of course, the nat gas inventories starting Thursday night. That's when New Zealand and Australia will be closed for Good Friday. Japan will be closed or has their monetary base number out that evening. And then we move into Friday. European markets will be closed, as will the U.S., but we are going to be getting the U.S. jobs number, so keep that in mind. People are looking for a big ADP number. The consensus stands at 633K, so that'll be interesting to see if that has any sort of impact on rates, but definitely looking to see what happens with the market. Bonds and equities will be closed, so we won't get our true read until Monday, obviously. But it's going to be interesting because we'll have participants with a couple of days to digest the news and see exactly how they want to trade it. But big number could put some further pressure on rates, so definitely bears watching here. Moving on from there, let's take a look at the events calendar for corporate. Again, this is pretty quiet. A lot of people don't like to run shows during a holiday week, and next week is no exception. So just going through, Bank of America has an ESG conference. It's Environmental, Social, and Governance conference, as well as retail technology. So that's going to be kicking off on Tuesday, the 30th. We also got Jefferies out with the Pan-European Mid-Cap Conference. I wouldn't expect too many names there to have an impact here in the U.S. Bank of America is going to be running their 11th annual Global Auto Show that day. Some of the names that we're seeing presenting there include Lear, Veneer, the VNE stock, General Motors should be here, Fisker, FSR, they'll be presenting, Danaher, Borg Warner, BWA. So some names of interest for us to keep an eye out on at that Bank of America Global Auto Show. And outside of that, that's pretty much it. There's really no big notable investor conferences or anything along those lines. So overall, a pretty quiet week. So now we're going to move over and take a look at the earners, and Scott's going to jump in and join us here in a second. So Scott, you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Gav. How are you?
Doing okay. Just keeping an eye out on this market. Wow, S&P back to the session highs here as I was talking. So, I mean, this kind of speaks to what you're saying. It's got some real whippy action. And the NASDAQ coming into some key resistance at the close.
Yeah, exactly. And even the small caps IWM also struggling below the 50-day moving averages. Yeah, as we've stated this pretty much all week long, very whipsaw action, choppy behavior, some distributions going on in small caps and big tech names. But then you look at something like today where the market just seems to be just one, depending on where you're watching, but it's either going up or it's going down or it's, doing both and it's just driving you batty. Yeah, you got to just really be focused and zoned in on certain industries and sectors to really capitalize on each of these intraday swings that we're seeing.
Yeah. So let's take a look, Scott, at some of these earners that coming out. Again, it's a pretty quiet week. I mean, Monday we got Cal-Maine Foods. So if you're into eggs, Scott, this is your play here. Let's take a look at the chart. See if there's anything of interest. Kind of curious to see any commentary that they could have with regards to pricing, I suppose, would be one way of looking at this. If we're going to start seeing some higher pricing working its way into supermarkets and things of that nature. But overall, this chart looks like the market feels right now, right? Ripped above the 200-day moving average, and now it's coming right back down to test it, going into the report and just sitting right on it, which is right at that psychological 40. You got any thoughts on this chart?
Nah, it's been really kind of just choppy the last like 5 to 6 years. If you look at a long-term chart, it seems like it moves on whenever there's a diet craze out. Like I remember when Atkins came out, or the South Beach diet, which are all high-protein diets. That's when they seem to have some really strong upside activity. I don't know. This one's been off my radar for such a long time. I don't even think they have a yield, do they? They have a dividend? Doesn't even look like it.
No, 0.66%, so no.
Yeah. So, no real opinion on it. It's kind of a low floater too, but I guess if you have it, $40 seems like the line in the sand.
Yeah. And just get an alert on FTNT, keeping an eye out on some of these other names just to see if they are moving with the hack and stuff. But no, it just looks like FTNT at the moment. So, all right. Next up, we've got that's the only name of interest, and that's not even really a big name of interest, I would say, Scott. Later on in the after hours, we get Seer, SEER. This develops and commercializes products for researchers in the biology sphere. So, certainly seen a lot of activity going on around names like this. Hold on, just having some issues with my charts here, Scott. So, as you can see, this has been a pretty whippy action. Recent IPO, and now it's coming down to post IPO lows here, Scott. So, must hold area down in the 40 level, but this has definitely been a space that's gotten beat up around its earnings reports as of late.
Yeah, IPO debut price back in early December was somewhere around $48. The low of that range was around 45. It has not been able to hold that here in March. It's probed it twice. It's been down below it the last two sessions. This stock has something to prove. Why did it come to the market? Let's see if earnings can back it up and they can defend this $40 area. If they can't and earnings suffer, the stock is going to be going bye-bye to the downside.
All right, and then we got BNTX out. Really more interested in this one for its commentary around the vaccine rollout more than anything. This is the German pharmaceutical company that's in conjunction with Pfizer rolling out the vaccine. So, have you been playing any of these vaccine plays as of late?
No, the last one was involved in was Moderna. Back I think I played the bounce in Moderna in early March. That might have been the last one, but no, they're too whippy these days, and I don't really, depending on the headline that's out there, you just don't know really what you're gonna get. So, and are they even gonna be Are they making money off these vaccines or no? I can't remember if the
Not
Are they
really.
write-offs? What are they doing with these
I'm
vaccines on the
assuming that
books?
they'll be able to use goodwill
Yeah.
to write it down. But
So
yeah, I mean, they're not making a killing on it by any stretch.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I'm really kind of avoiding them. But BNTX, I don't really have much to say about it. You know, Pfizer, I'd rather look at that one. It's challenging $36. Fresh March highs here for PFE.
All right, then we got Scott. You were talking about the staples earlier. We got a good one with McCormick MKC
Hmm.
coming out. They of course are the spice maker. Hold on, my chart's getting a little loopy on me here.
I hear you.
What's that?
I can hear you. Is that
No,
what you said?
no, I said my charts.
Oh, oh, your
uh,
charts.
so, so this is one that's an interesting looking name here. We talked about some of the strength we've been seeing in staples. MKC is edging above its 50-day moving average and trying to break that downward trend line that's started coming into play back around August. If you're looking at this for a dividend yield, it's not all that exciting at 1.53%. But this was one that had a really strong start to 2020, then obviously faltered late, and it broke below the 200-day moving average around its last earnings report. Now it's coming back up and edging higher, trying to get back up into those low 90s area.
Yeah, not a bad looking chart. 90 definitely looks like the line in the sand if you go back over the last year or so. So 90 it is. Yeah, let's keep that one on the radar.
All right, next up, we've got one of the meme stocks here, Blackberry Bb. This one I've got interest in because they've recently announced a deal with Amazon and they did something with Baidu as well. So that QNX technology that they've developed seems like it's getting picked up in a couple of different products. So I'll be curious to hear what they have to say about it. But really just trying to hold above the 9 level here and build off of that. So you got any thoughts on BlackBerry?
Yeah, it's kind of dead money right now, along with a couple of those other names that are out there. But very choppy. You know, the hype is gone, the momentum's gone out of these names. So just it is what it is. It seems more like it's turning into more of a investment vehicle at this point in time. We'll see if earnings can jumpstart it again. But I don't know. No opinion really.
Yeah. Okay, Chewy, CHWY,
Hmm.
they're going to be out on Tuesday. We're into Tuesday evening. This is one of the names that it's kind of gotten beat up as the reopening trade comes back into fruition. Chewy had a huge run up during COVID, of course. Um, but as of late, been one of the weaker names out there, coming into some key support levels around the 72 to 75 level, we'll call it.
Hmm.
So it needs to show profitability and to see it continue to thrive with revenue growth here in order to keep above those levels.
Yeah, Gav. I mean, I'm a recent dog owner. And I can tell you this much, walking out of the actual PetSmarts and the physical stores with a 40, 50 pound bag of dog food is uncomfortable to say the least. And I'm not really the most buff guy in the world. So having somebody deliver it to my door it kind of fits the bill here. I'm sure I'm not the laziest pet owner in the world. I can definitely see people, forcing their UPS and FedEx and Amazon delivery people to bring their heavy bags of food to them. So I think this company's, might continue to do well. Sales are there for sure over the last couple of quarters. Like you said, just needs to go from negative to profitability, and I think it might do it. We'll see.
Yeah.
But technically, yeah, let's look at the chart there. Sorry. It's got to get back above the 20-day moving averages around $86, $88 there to get some more upside activity. To the downside, it's got to hold the March lows. Otherwise, it could be probing or challenging the $70 area.
Yeah. Here's one I'm interested to see. Lulu, Scott, Lulu, of course, for the longest time, the hottest retail name out there. That has not been the case the last couple of months, but I gotta say, Scott, I don't know. I look out and I feel like all I see is women in in yoga pants. I mean, I don't see how they're not going to have a good quarter. So it's been holding above the 300 area. I've got a real interest in a long in this one early next week ahead of earnings.
Um, I don't go out, Gav, so I can't say if I see anybody wearing these things. And I know they're super expensive too. They're definitely a higher end retail apparel company. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know. The chart's kind of on the weaker side of things lately. There have been stronger apparel names out there. We mentioned a few of them from Urban Outfitters, American Eagle Outfitters. Even the Gap has been climbing higher these days. Lulu seems to be going the opposite direction, and it's trading below all the key moving averages, the 50 and the 20. So it's got something to prove. It's got to get back above the March highs in the short term over that 320 area.
All right. PVH will also be out.
Phillips Van Heusen?
Yeah, and they are, well, it's just PVH, right? Didn't they drop the,
I don't know. I see PVH and I see Phillips Van Heusen, so.
Yeah, well, this one, good looking chart actually. It's pushed above its 50-day moving average today. Just kind of been chopping around right around that 100 level for the most part. Some of these retailers we've seen rewarded here. This is, of course, Kenneth Cole, Tommy Hilfiger, Tommy Bahama. No, that's OXM. Tommy.
Yeah.
So Hilfiger, Kenneth Cole. So, yeah, some good names there. Speedo. I know Scott's got all the Speedos in there ready to go, driving up the comps.
Lifetime supply worth. Yeah.
But, yeah, it's another one that looks decent to me going into earnings.
Yeah, not bad. It's a name that I don't really trade too frequently. I think it's more probably of an investment vehicle, but decent looking long-term charts on the radar there. It's got some resistance coming into play around $107, $110. But so far so good. You look at a weekly time frame. It is in some sort of persistent uptrend over the last couple months there, finding support around 90, 92. So that's pretty nice looking action going on there so far. As long as it stays above 90, I think I like it.
All right, and then we are moving now on to Wednesday morning. Here's a name that I got an interest in. Walgreens Boots Alliance, WBA. I think a lot of people just are going to Walgreens in the hopes that they could get the vaccine and are just buying stuff, Scott. I told you my theory on this a couple of weeks ago. I'll be curious to see if it's reflected in the numbers. But overall, it's been pretty positive here. After a rally above its 50-day moving average to get to 55, it's rolled back, but finding its support at this 50 cycle level ahead of the report.
Yeah, it's not looking so bad. It's got a nice multi-month uptrend above the 50-day moving average, or right around $50. I'd also keep CVS on the radar too if you are going to trade WBA. CVS a little bit more choppier sideways action the last few months, but I think it could be the stronger of the charts lately. A little bit more of a consolidation breakout, strong today, getting back up to fresh 2-month highs here. So I would definitely watch both of them on the radar there, CVS and WBA.
Okay, and then moving on to that evening, we are going to go with one of the strongest stocks out in the market, Scott, and that would be Dave & Buster's, your nemesis.
No longer.
This will be an interesting one because you got to figure these numbers can't be great, but all they really have to show is linearity and an improving trend there, and that should probably be enough. But this one definitely falls in under the reopening trade short squeeze radar, and it's edging up. I can't believe that this is nearly 50 right now. So what's your latest on Dave & Buster's?
I mean, so I made a lot of money trading this on the short side throughout COVID in 2020, pretty much just fading every single time it rallied for more than like 3 or 4 days and spiked higher. There was just lots of money to be made after, for the rollover. I stopped doing that in November when it gapped up over $20. I believe it was an earnings report. And then all these analysts started coming out and upping their targets in this one for the reopening play, I guess because of the vaccine. And so they started, putting higher targets on it and whatnot. I didn't think it was really going to get past 30 at any point, but thank goodness I stopped shorting it then because it's just been on a steady upward trend above a rising 20-day moving average for the last 5 months. Recently, today, just probing $50. So just absolutely insane, I think, for that kind of move there. I don't think any analysts updated their targets from the 25, $26 area that I think was like the high back then. So I'm surprised nobody's downgraded this thing yet. So to tell you the truth, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always sat there and laughed. Like I don't think my first thought in my mind was not to rush the family out to Dave and Buster's in the midst of a pandemic, vaccine or no vaccine.
I agree, Scott. I agree. We also have Guess Jeans out. This one's been rolling over as of late after a pretty strong run. Breaking below the 50. It's starting to look a little sicker here, Scott, so I'd be concerned with Guess.
Yeah, you got to be careful with these retailers, apparel stocks. Sometimes they definitely are cyclical, when they trade. This one had a fantastic run up the last 4 or 5 months, starting to break below the 50-day moving average. That's a red flag of caution for sure. It does seem to find a little bit of support recently this week around $22, $21. So that's going to be your line in the sand going forward. It needs to reclaim the 50-day moving average above 25 to get things moving back to the upside. Gab, also too, as we're getting towards the close here in a couple minutes, market's just grinding its way higher here. Really strong moves to the upside. Looks like it's just insane. Insane. NASDAQ futures back above 12,900.
Yeah, just keep an eye on Viacom here too. That's edging back towards 50 at the moment.
I mean, all is well right now. We'll take a look over at the IWMs, small caps. They're still banging up below the 50-day moving average around that 220 area. So not seeing as much strength there in that space, but definitely seeing a lot more strength in the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ right now going into this Friday close here.
Yeah, so much for a fund blowing up, huh?
maybe funds blow up on the short side. Who knows?
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess so, right? Okay, so here's the biggest report for the week. Micron, ticker symbol MU. This one is edging up towards session highs here into the close, trying to get back above its 50. But any talks about the supply shortage in semis? We'll get a nice update from Micron here, so we'll keep an eye out on that. But DRAM and NAND pricing, obviously, on the storage front will be key drivers. So one of the bigger, really the only bellwether, I would say, out there. So what's your thoughts on the semis in general, the SMH and Micron?
The SMH was struggling here the last couple of weeks in March below the 50-day moving averages, but today it's actually shown a lot of relative strength, and you're starting to see a strong recovery back up to the 240 resistance area here, and it's just absolutely stellar move here today. There's some stocks that are just dominating to the upside in that semiconductor space. Texas Instruments breaking out big time today. Nice big move there. ASML, another leading name in that space there, also breaking out over 600. That's a new high for that one as well. So you do have quite a few names that are looking pretty good. AMAT, Applied Materials. I believe there was a headline out, was it Intel that was doing something with opening up new facilities or something like that, Kev?
Yeah, that was earlier in the week. And,
yeah.
And it's what I've been hammering home. All these semi-equipment plays with the amount of money that's being put in to make up for the demand. They need more capacity utilization. You can't go wrong there. ASX is another one that I'd have on the radar too. That one's one that hasn't run away from me yet that you can still get involved in. So, but yeah, Clack, AMAT, all those names.
Yeah, Broadcom. They're all just having absolutely stellar days to the upside. Really strong moves there. Anyway, so back to. What was the Micron you said? Micron Storage memory stocks doing great there. Definitely reclaiming the 50-day moving average after a pullback this week. So it could get that pre-earnings drift higher, at least going into Wednesday's earnings. So I would keep down the radar. Of course, I would also keep WDC Western Digital, which bounced off the 50-day moving average in the March lows yesterday on the radar, and Seagate Technologies, STX, another one that bounced off the 50-day moving average yesterday around the March lows off the 70 level.
Okay. Um, and looking at Thursday morning, CarMax is going to be out KMX. So
Hmm.
taking a look at that chart, this is one that's near
It's been
its all-time
solid.
highs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Scott, I used CarMax a couple months back.
Oh, you
It's
did?
good service. Yeah,
Oh,
I was
yeah.
very happy. Like,
I've
if
been talking about that for years, telling you to use it.
no, I know. I mean, like, if I never have to go into another dealership again, it will be too soon. The only way I'd ever go in to one is if I had the cash just to throw down on a car and I didn't have to haggle with anybody.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I mean, I don't get why it's like they strive to be swarmy, you know?
Swarmy. That's a good term. I was gonna say sleazy, but swarmy is yeah.
Yeah,
I hear you. But CarMax, you don't
but
get that
CarMax
same
looks
feel.
great here.
Yeah, CarMax, you go in, and it's just like they don't care if you buy the car or not because I guess it doesn't really work. They're not getting paid that way or something. The whole system's not set up that way. But it's just a nice experience. You drive the car, there's no pressure. You walk away. They're not going to push another car on you. It's just kind of a nice experience. Anyway, CarMax looks great. I like the chart, big picture, long term stuff. So.
All right, and that's going to take us into the close here, Scott. So I think
Yep.
that's going to do it for us. One last quick glance at the markets here. We're going to end, as Scott was just saying, right near the session highs in what is just an incredibly whippy day for the markets. And going into a holiday shortened week with lighter volume, Scott, that should be interesting to see how this is digested.
Yeah, it's just a crazy market here. I mean, Gav, I got some really nice looking breakouts that I'm going to be posting on the TA page scans for this weekend. I mentioned a whole bunch of them on the site about an hour ago that were just looking solid there. Just really strong moves in a couple of these sectors that have been outperforming, from housing to steel stocks to industrials to basic materials, chemical names, railroads are breaking out. There's just some really nice looking moves overall. And then now we have semiconductors, some regaining some of the activity there, a few technology names, some staples. This market's definitely doesn't look like it's ready to go down into more of a corrective phase. It's definitely industry oriented at this point in time, with technology being more of the weaker groups as of the last couple of weeks. So it's going to be interesting how the next 3 days plays out with month end, quarter end coming into play. So,
All
but
right.
yeah, overall, it's not as bearish as it seems underneath the hood.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Look at this extension going in.
Are they
So
still
yeah.
squeezing this? I
So
know. Brutal.
the blow up fund obviously was not the was not the
Was were
proper
you?
look.
Well, did somebody say that, or I missed
Yeah,
that? Where's that coming from?
there's a feedback on it
Oh, okay.
insisting that that was the issue, and this isn't the type of price action you get when something like that goes on. So
Yeah, exactly.
anyway, all right, Scott. Well, I think that's going to do it for us.
Hmm.
I'll be posting this to the site here shortly, but if anybody's got any questions, feel free to write in, and we'll take a look at them and answer them. Otherwise, we'll see everybody on Monday.
All right, sounds good. Have a good one.
All right, later on, Scott. Take care.